it's also timely considering what day it is, and we'll get to it.
Monday?
Yeah.
No.
A random day in June?
Not so random.
Okay.
But anyway. Excuse me. Norma McCorvey is a name that you likely or may not at all know off the top of your head.
Marmaduke Wetherell.
Marmaduke. She was born on September 22nd, 1947, a Virgo, and grew up in Lettsworth, Louisiana before her family moved to Houston, Texas. She had a very challenging childhood. Her father left when she was only 13, leaving her and her older brother to be raised by their mother, who struggled with alcoholism and was, according to them, abusive to both her and her brother. She sought some comfort from their Pentecostal church community, but often acted out as troubled teens do. And apparently when she was like 11, maybe 12 years old, she and her BFF like robbed a gas station.
Oh, okay.
As you do.
And then scurried off and got a motel room outside of town to hide out in. And like, again, they were
Who's renting?
12.
Who's like, yeah, here are the keys.
So they successfully lied about their ages by either just trickery or like fake IDs. I'm not sure, but it was also the 50s, so it probably wasn't like all that hard to trick someone.
Or they just didn't give a shit. Here you go.
Didn't give a shit.
They just didn't ask, yeah.
You got $5? Great.
While they were hiding out, a maid came to clean the room and caught the two young girls kissing.
Ooh.
In a response that likely was fueled by homophobia, the maid contacted management, who contacted the authorities. So it's like, oh, you're kissing, but then it's like, oh, wait, you're also like 12.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Call this one in. I can't imagine. No.
Yeah, robbing the gas station and like running away and getting a motel room at 12
That was
nobody
so beyond my
batted an
capability.
eye. And then two girls kiss and they've got the cops called.
What
Yeah,
a love
pretty
story.
much.
That's exciting. Bonnie
Sure,
and Bonnie.
Yeah. Bonnie and Bon. Bon and Bon.
Bonnie and Clint.
So the girls were picked up. Young Norma was made a ward of the state and sent to a state-funded Catholic boarding school to be cared for and, like, quote, rehabilitated. I'm sure they did some unspeakable things there.
Yeah, horrible.
She attended a handful of boarding schools throughout her tweens, but had the best experience at the Gainesville, Texas State School for Girls.
I'm sure she did.
She felt, well, yeah. Lesbian! This poor woman, but yeah.
No, I'm sure she endured horrific abuse.
Yeah, no, she probably did, but she said that this was the school and place that she felt safest, and that even when she would go home for like long weekends or school breaks, she'd have to go stay back with her mother, and she
Didn't want to be there.
Didn't want to be there, so she would act out intentionally on home visits to be sent back
Early.
to the Gainesville State School for Girls. So she did leave that school around the age of 15, but did not want to move back in with her mother, so she moved in with her mother's cousin, an older man who she trusted. Some reports indicate that this older man raped Norma, but when Norma's mother discovered this, she took her from his home and brought her back to her home. So, like, yes, Norma's mother was abusive, but also she was like, fuck that. I'm getting you out of there. She confronted her cousin, who maintained that these allegations were false. And as far as I know, nothing was ever like filed for this, but that certainly does not mean that this did not happen.
But it sounds like the mom, for all her faults, believed Norma. Okay.
Believed her, stepped in, and brought her home. So now she's back home. She's miserable. She gets a job at a local restaurant and meets Woody McCorvey, which is how she got the last name McCorvey, who was 2 years her senior. The two fell madly in love, and with the permission of Norma's mother, she married him at 16 years old.
Oh, my God.
They got pregnant immediately.
Yeah, 16 and 18.
Yep. But the marriage ended before the child was born. They got divorced before the baby was even born.
Oh.
Which, like, good for you, honey. This was probably the right move.
Yeah.
Months or years in that at that age.
They really are. Norma alleged that he was physically violent with her, and so she left him before the child was born. So she leaves him, she has her child, and then she leaves the child primarily in the care of her mother. After the birth of her baby girl, who was named Melissa, and sort of like a spoken agreement adoption of Melissa by her mother. It's not on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But Norma falls deeply into depression and she starts using like hard drugs and alcohol to cope.
Well, she's had quite the life and she's 17.
16.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Around this time, she discovered her sexual identity and came out as a lesbian. Meanwhile, baby Melissa was being kind of used by Norma's mother to like teach Norma a lesson. In one instance, Norma left town for the weekend while her mother cared for Melissa. And again, Norma was still like living in the home with her baby and her mom, despite not being baby Melissa's full-time caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like a legal adoptions or whatever situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, this is what we're doing.
She's kind of in and out. Yeah, it's all informal.
Yep. So while Norma's gone, her mother calls the police to report Norma for abandoning her baby and had the police come and like evict Norma from the home and didn't let Norma see baby Melissa for months.
Oh.
And then the dust kind of settled on that fight, and eventually Norma was allowed to move back in. And a few months after she moved back in, she was presented with papers to sign with her mother saying like, oh, these are insurance documents for you and baby Melissa. We just need your signature as the guard, like the parent.
But it wasn't.
But it wasn't. They were actually adoption papers, and Nora's mother had literally like tricked her into signing them, and then she filed them and kicked Nora out of the house, gaining sole legal custody of baby Melissa.
Dang it.
Damn.
So it's a pretty toxic place and a really tragic situation. So now she's out on her own. She's making ends meet via survival sex work. Nora falls pregnant again and gives birth to another baby girl who she places for adoption. And then years later, she finds out she's pregnant for the third time in 1969. By this time, she's 21 years old.
Oh, God.
And she goes back to Dallas to consider her options. Abortion was not legal in Texas at the time, but could be legally obtained through extenuating circumstances like rape or incest.
Yeah, you had to like literally go in front of a panel.
Mm-hmm. And then to trial about it, like to court. But so abortion's not legal, but like her friends are like, hey, if you, a white woman, claim you were raped by a black man,
Oh, they'll approve it.
everyone will believe you and the state will grant you a legal abortion.
Oh my God. Just the layers of that.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
What a
It's-
loophole. That's sick.
It's horrifying. I mean, yes, it is a loophole. However, she does have to, if she makes a claim like this, she has to be able to provide evidence of it. And due to a lack of police evidence or documentation, this plan was not successful. She was denied a legal abortion, and she later confessed that it was a fabrication entirely.
So the baby's father wasn't black anyway?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's possible, but I have
If
no...
she's engaging in survival sex work, she
It could be.
could have no
She might not
idea.
have any idea.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's not even like she's straight. Like she's engaging
No.
in sex with men
Right.
for work, not
For- yeah.
pleasure.
Right.
Exactly. So then she attempts to get an illegal abortion, but the recommended clinic had been closed down by authorities for just that. Her primary care doctor suggested that she consult Henry McCluskey, who is an adoption lawyer in Dallas, because it's looking like your options are
Narrowing.
closing now, narrowing. Let's think of the next steps. She makes it clear that she's only interested in abortion resources, but agreed to meet with this lawyer anyway, just to see if he had any recommendations, being in this field. McCluskey, quote, referred her to feminist lawyers Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington, who had been seeking just such a client to challenge the laws restricting access to abortion.
Okay.
So from Lucy's Lover, Britannica.com. Quote, McCorvey was hoping that she would quickly gain permission to receive an abortion, but she was unsuccessful. Coffey and Weddington changed the case to a class action suit, and by the time a ruling was made by a federal 3-judge panel that the Texas law against abortion was unconstitutional, McCorvey had already given birth and again given up this baby for adoption. Excuse me, place, but this is a quote.
That wasn't a quick solution.
No.
That's what. Yeah, it's so fucked. The system is
So
fucked.
the state of Texas appealed, and in 1973, the Supreme Court ruled that during the first trimester of pregnancy, a pregnant woman did have the right to have an abortion, quote, free of interference by the state. So though Norma was at the center of these groundbreaking trials, she rarely attended and was simply referred to as Jane Roe.
Here we go.
Roe, as in Roe v. Wade, as in today is the anniversary of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It all connects, y'all. My red string is fucking red stringing, bitches.
Yeah. Not just any Monday in June.
Yep. So, inspired by her own attempts at receiving the best healthcare choice for her, she got heavily involved in pro-choice activism, volunteering at clinics, and publicly supporting the right to choose. She continued this work throughout the 80s, and she also met and moved in with her partner, Connie Gonzalez, around this time. Everything seemed to change, however, in 1995 when she was working at a clinic and a group of anti-choice protesters were outside picketing, as per usual. But something was different this time because for some reason, Norma, quote, befriended Philip Flip Benham, who is the head of the aggressive pro-life organization Operation Rescue, and she soon began campaigning against the right to abortion.
Yeah, I knew
Norma?
this about. Yeah, I knew this about the Roe in the Roe v. Wade case that she like flipped sides.
It's really wild. So, end quote. So it's important to note that Norma was being alienated within the pro-choice activism community because she wasn't like the other women there. They didn't like how she spoke about abortion. And as we know, internalized misogyny and toxic feminism can often lead to like the victimization of women who aren't deemed, quote, a good enough or like a likable enough victim. And they also had really thrown this woman into being the figurehead of this massive court case.
And she never even like benefited from these rights.
She never got an abortion.
Right.
She never received it. But they wanted her to like be the face of this movement, which is, you know, not something she ever really.
And then they were like, "You're not living up to being the face of this movement."
Yeah, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And then she, I guess, like on her lunch break at this clinic, was outside, and I guess she said in an interview later that there was like a poster that they had that showed it was probably very, very, very unscientific and not medically accurate, but it showed like the steps of like the process of an abortion.
Like the
And she's like-
pro-life group had this.
Yes. And
All
so
of that
she said that she was
it
very
should be
moved by
illegal
that.
to have medical lies
Misinformation.
in advertisements like that, or like
screamed at vulnerable people trying to make the hardest decision of their
or
fucking
like
life. Yeah, it should be
photoshopped
illegal.
fucking fetuses with like full dentures.
Yeah. Ugh, psycho. I can't. I know. I totally
an
agree with you.
Instagram trend.
Totally
The
agree with you.
babies, not fetuses.
Yeah.
So Flip Benham, the fucking Operation Rescue guy, was aware of this, knew that like the pro-choice faction was waffling on Norma. And he definitely exploited this knowledge, inviting Norma to their side, where he promised, like, you'll be cared for, you'll be listened to, like, you'll be supported.
She'd basically be like a defector to the Soviet
Correct.
Union or something. You know, she'd be held up.
And she took the bait. So from NPR, quote, he ingratiates himself to Norma. He befriends her as much of the pro-choice movement is sort of pushing her away. He wants to sort of hug her and hold her close, and she then decides to flip, and she switches sides.
She flipped to flip.
Yep. As one of the heads of the pro-life community put it, in Texas, quote, the poster child jumped off the poster. So this was like making headlines everywhere. But just as Norma didn't feel at home on the pro-choice side, she doesn't feel at home on the pro-life side because they're exploiting her too. And one big problem is that they basically tell her that she can't be gay. She has to renounce her homosexuality, and this causes her untold grief and suffering, end quote. Despite this, she publicly renounces Roe and joins forces with anti-choice activists in 1995. She and her partner Connie apparently continued to live together. They were together for like 35 or 40 years. Though Norma alleges that around this time, their relationship became, quote, a platonic friendship.
Lesbian bed
We're
death.
roommates.
Man.
We're roommates.
We're roommates.
Sure, Grandma, let's get you to bed.
Deathbed.
Lesbian deathbed. New band name, I call it. So, from Wikipedia, here is a little rundown of the work that Norma was doing with Operation Rescue. Quote, she converted to evangelical Protestantism and was baptized on August 8th, 1995 by Flip Benham in Dallas, Texas, in a backyard swimming pool. And this was like a big event that was filmed for national television as like, here's our huge announcement on the, pro-life side. We got her.
The exploitation of this woman is so
really
sad.
tragic.
And it's so telling that,
tragic.
like, she's just ping-ponged between
1,000%.
these two movements, both of which she does not actually fit into.
Nope.
Because people are unique, and not
Yeah.
everyone fits into your little box, and maybe we should all have choices.
Yeah, and the issue of abortion is certainly not black and white.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty fucking poetic how this worked out. But so 2 days later, after she gets baptized, she announced that she had quit her job at the abortion clinic and had become an advocate of Operation Rescue's campaign to make abortion illegal. She voiced remorse for her part in the Supreme Court decision and said she had been a pawn for abortion activists. Years later, in 2004, McCorvey sought to have the U.S. Supreme Court overturn Roe v. Wade, saying that there was now evidence that the procedure harms women. This is false. But the case was ultimately dismissed in 2005 because there's no evidence about that. McCorvey remained active in anti-abortion demonstrations, including one that she participated in before President Barack Obama's commencement address to the graduates of the University of Notre Dame. Mr. Corvey, Mick Corvey, was arrested on the first day of the U.S. Senate hearings for the confirmation to the Supreme Court of the United States of Sonia Sotomayor after McCorvey and another protester began shouting during Al Franken's opening statement.
Wow.
McCorvey, so she was like
very active.
All up in it.
Dang.
McCorvey appeared in the 2013 film Doonby, in which she delivers an anti-abortion message. She's also the subject of Joshua Prager's 2021 book, The Family Roe, An American Story. So she really went
She
deep
jumped onto
to the other side.
poster.
Norma fell ill in the late 20-teens and was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. So I'm not sure if she was given a specific timeline, but certainly a prognosis that was this isn't looking good. And she was aware that her life was drawing to a close.
Yeah, we're gonna die.
Yep. So when she was approached to film the documentary, AKA Jane Roe, for FX in 2016, she accepted, knowing this would be the last platform that she had to tell her story before meeting her God IRL. She sits down in front of the camera for her interview and says to the director, Nick Sweeney, quote, "This is my deathbed confession." She then opens up and explains that she never really supported the anti-abortion movement. Quote, "I took their money and they put me out in front of the camera and told me what to say, and that's what I'd say," she explained.
Oh my God.
"It was all an act?" the director asks. "Yeah," she says. "I was good at it too."
Oh my God.
Lot of feelings, all valid. This is where we can get into the complexity of being human, where it's I do have a lot of empathy for this vulnerable woman who was used as a political pawn and a religious pawn and absolutely exploited at a really awful time in her life. And it is undeniable that she caused a lot of harm to a lot of
I can't believe
people.
Connie stayed with her through this
know.
big change.
Yeah.
I would have been
Throughout this time. So I'm your roommate now.
Love is
and
conditional.
It's platonic
It super
now.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really sad. So the documentary goes into the real Norma, a woman who both sides of the activism spectrum found charming and infuriating simultaneously.
I mean, you also have to remember, like you said, the empathy piece, she had a really fucking horrific
Awful.
childhood and early life.
She was surviving.
She was surviving.
Absolutely she was. And you can hold that and have empathy for that. And I feel a lot of empathy for her, and it's still fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those things can be true for sure. From the Washington Post, quote, she rewrote stories into fantasies. She could be mercenary and always needed money. Maybe the best word for her was survivor. Multiple people decided independently. After a rough life, she'd now do whatever it took to survive. At one point in the FX documentary, she chuckles that she's always, quote, looking out for Norma's salvation and Norma's butt. At times, she seemed to be exactly what their movements needed. At times, she seemed hell-bent on complicating an issue that they found to be absolutely simple and clear. As to why she came forward with this information, director Nick Sweeney believes, quote, she agreed to participate because she knew she was nearing the end of her life and because Sweeney hadn't approached her with any kind of an agenda. He didn't want to make an abortion rights or anti-abortion film. He simply wanted to know her as a person.
So he didn't pay her anything to participate in this film.
Nope. She wanted him to, and he was like, because of journalistic integrity, I can't do that, but we can negotiate some kind of little payment for like release of photos. You know, if you like really need to make a buck,
like a royalties
off of just
thing.
sitting, yeah, like not even a royalties thing. I don't even
Like
remember. Like a photo release, and we'll pay you for the right to use these photos in this
There's
documentary.
craft services
Yeah.
at the
But he
shoot.
Hair
didn't-
and makeup.
Yeah. That was just like a workaround. They find workarounds like this all the time. But he's like, I can't just pay you for doing the interview. So he said there's a temptation to reduce her to something like a trophy or an emblem.
It's like
but
fucking capture the flag, but with a
Exactly.
human being.
it really is.
Capture the row.
Yeah. But it's important to know that there was someone who was a real person, Sweeney says. People on all sides wanted her to be the person that suited their aims, and in a lot of ways, she just wanted to be herself.
I don't need a figurehead to know that
Exactly.
I'm pro-choice,
Mm-mm.
you know? Because
Yeah.
that's the whole point of it. It's like I don't get to choose for someone else, and they don't get to choose for me. Like
Yeah. It wasn't that easy back then, though, trying to
No.
persuade the majority of the country.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, it.
Yeah, let her be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap up my case just by reading the rest of that Washington Post article because it tells it all just better than I could have tried to break it down and rewrite it, so why bother? So did he ask whether she regretted anything about her choices over the past 20 years? Yes. And what did she say? She said no. There's a scene in the documentary where when the clip of McCorvey's revelation is played back for all the other participants in this movement, one by one, including Robert Schenck or whatever, who's like this fucking religious anti-choice douchebag, Charlotte Taft, Gloria Allred. They all hear McCorvey
What about
say,
Flip?
quote,
Is Flip still around? Or is Flip dead?
if he's around, I'm sure he saw it. He might be dead. Who knows? So they all hear McCorvey say, quote, I took their money and they put me out in front of the camera and told me what to say. One by one, they all gasp. It felt like such a betrayal, Taft says in an interview. The stakes were so high. Seeing it was shocking to me, Schenck says in an interview, not because of what it revealed about her, but what it revealed about me and the movement. She forced me to be honest with myself. I actually kind of appreciate his response here.
Okay.
The anti-abortion movement had used her, he thinks now. They'd used her image and her story and her regret, and they'd shaved off all the rough edges, turning her into a perfect poster girl instead of a person, which is so easy for people to do with abortion. Get so caught up in scrambling for the moral high ground, you forget about the people, they say women, but people underfoot.
This is his quote.
This is like some editorializing of what this guy was saying in response to watching this documentary.
That's his idea.
This is how he feels,
Wow.
yes. He used to be an absolutist. No exceptions, no excuses, no justifications. In recent years, his position has softened. He understands why some people's life circumstances might make abortion the best option for them, and he's grown disillusioned about the public debate around abortion. Quote, realizing how much the political leaders on both sides have exploited the issue, that seemed to be very problematic morally and ethically, Schenck says. I'm not ready to celebrate abortion. I still think it represents a tragedy and a failure, but I think the human realities around it make it understandable.
Yeah.
End quote.
Wow.
pretty incredible that he would have even
flipped him.
She did.
Everybody's flip-flopping.
Everybody snip snap, snip snap, snip snap. So what to make of Norma McCorvey? Maybe she works best as a symbol of a different kind of struggle, personal, not political. Again, this is still from the Washington Post article. I can't write this well. It's a struggle that comes with trying to reconcile our untidy, doubt-ridden, trophy-seeking inner monologues with the roles we inhabit in America's morality play. In the end, McCorvey seemed to make a sort of peace with the legacy of Jane Roe. Quote, women have been having abortions for thousands of years, she says near the end of the documentary. If it's just the woman's choice and she chooses to have an abortion, then it should be safe. Roe v. Wade helped save people's lives.
Jesus Christ.
Isn't that wild?
That's insane. I didn't know any of that.
I knew some of that, but not the whole, obviously not the whole thing.
I didn't know any of it
She's
either.
dead
so I was
now, right?
Yes. Yep. She passed away in 2017 from her congestive heart failure.
Oh my God.
And that truly was her last, like, if you look at the photos on the drive, which will be on the blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com, there's like a couple shots of her giving that final interview and she's like hooked up to like oxygen. Like she's not well. But yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Anyway, that's my case.
Well,
Wow. That was
people
good.
Yeah.
are complicated.
People are complicated.
Choose-
Human beings.
Choose your claimants in your class action lawsuit wisely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, I sure hope you liked that clip. If you did like that clip, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us a nice review, and joining us on Patreon for even more video content, audio content, salacious content all around. Come join us. Treat yourself.